All right, so now we've got two filters running. Now let's talk about Ajax. So let's have a servlet here that maybe we could reuse this one. This servlet here. Let's use this servlet to return a message. Actually, we have it right there. I'm just going to rename this. I don't like that name. I'm just going to refactor that. I'm going to rename that to the GetMessage servlet. Notice it also renamed the file. This is a requirement. Class names need to match your file names in Java. So that refactoring was kind of did some automatic renaming of the file, but it did not affect the configuration here. So this would need to change. This servlet here is, I'm going to change the name of this. This configuration was not affected when we did the renaming. And this is the servlet name here. And for the URL, we'll say get dash message. Like that. So when we request this message, we're going to get that string. It says hello world. I would just say this. I'm the message. Now, let's get this string by Ajax. Notice this is a do get here, right? So I like to use do post in Ajax, but we can use do get. Or we could test this, I guess. Let's go ahead and test it. This is GetMessage. What is this? Address is already in use. All right. That's a problem. So this here is a problem I get a lot here. So what I need to do is shut down there's a process. I didn't shut down the server. I started it without shutting it down. So let's see. There's a way to do that. There's a view that I can use. I think it's one of these things here. Is it the debug view? Let me see there. I think it's this debug view. Let's see if that's it. Yeah, that's it right there. So I got some junk in there now. So I'm gonna remove terminated. This is the process, kind of a zombie process now. I didn't properly shut it down when I tried to start up the server. So I'm going to terminate and relaunch, actually. All right. So it moved me back. You know, this screen sent me back to the console. So this little debug view is useful. It shows you what's running right now, and you can right-click on this and terminate the server process, or terminate and relaunch, or terminate and remove. So these are all pretty handy. So here's the console window, and here we have, I'm going to go to this this get message. So it's get dash message. Now this generates a do get request. So we should say I'm the message. It works. But it's not meant to be accessed through the web browser like that. It's not meant to be accessed through the web browser. It's meant to be accessed through an Ajax request. So I'm going to change that to do post. It's optional, doesn't have to be done like this, but I like to do Ajax over post. And so when the post request comes in, we're going to basically send back the same message. Let me shut this down and relaunch that. Now you'll see that this won't work. Method not supported. It's the get method, because we need to get it through the post method. All right. Let's use Ajax to get that string. And I'm going to go into this index.jsp file here. And let's get the message. And I'm going to use jQuery. Let's go ahead and get jQuery in here. I'm going to use the jQuery CDN. Media Temple is providing jQuery through their CDN. I don't get it. Why are they? They're sort of promoting this. I don't know why. I guess we can get it from there. It's not a big deal. And you can also get it through Google CDN or Microsoft CDN. And I would guess that they're faster and better, but for some reason this company wants the traffic, and maybe there's some reason for that. They can do some kind of studies on the traffic or whatever. I'm not sure why they want that. Let me get it from Google. I think this is faster. And paste that in there. And let's have, we're going to have a body here. This is probably optional. I've heard it said that the script elements at the bottom of the body, if they're loaded synchronously like we are here, that this makes the page render faster. I've heard that. I'm not sure if it's the case, but I've heard that. And so we've got jQuery. Now we can use jQuery. Let's go ahead and write some script that uses jQuery. And let's get some initialization in there. This is how you register a callback function with jQuery's ready event. Just use $. You pass your callback function into the $. Function. That registers your callback function as to be invoked when the DOM is loaded and ready to be operated on. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the message in a div. And so I'm going to create a div for this purpose. I'm going to give the div an ID of message. And then what I'll do here is we're going to get the message in some variable, and then we're going to write it into this div so that it appears. Let's look at that. So to do that, we're going to use Ajax, jQuery's version of Ajax. So we're going to make an Ajax call, and Ajax, there's different ways of doing it. You look in the jQuery documentation. There's a lot of sort of options there. And let me go to the docs here. This is the Ajax section. This is the starting point here. I go here, this one right there, jQuery.ajax. Remember, whenever you see jQuery, you can think it's the same as $. $sign is a synonym for jQuery. So this is the same as $.ajax. You can write jQuery.ajax too. This works as well. And you'll see in there, this is the form that it takes here. Performs an asynchronous HTTP request, an Ajax request. You see, as an argument called the URL, and then it has this optional settings argument. But you know, this is one version, and this is the other version, which just takes settings by itself. This is the version I tend to use right here. And the settings is an object that has these optional attributes. URL is a required attribute, so it's in there somewhere. It's big. There's a lot. It's hard to read this, by the way. I had to spend a lot of time with this. Of course, I've seen this page change over time as well. So this is, this actually has a default setting, so it's not required, it has a default. The current page sends a Ajax request to the current URL that you used to load the page from. So this is the form that I'm going to use. And so we have our parameters in there. And then we're going to register a callback function that gets invoked when the Ajax request is completed or done. So this is our callback function. I'm going to say I am done. That's the callback function. And this is like that. It's hard to read like that, so what I do is just drop it down to the next line. It's the same thing. But actually, you can do a little more. You can also register a callback if the request fails. And you can put a register a callback function that gets invoked if there is an error in processing the Ajax request. This should be function. I didn't get that right. Once again, I'm going to drop that down to the next line. I can do this because the Ajax function here, when we invoke that function, it returns a jQuery, what do they call it? XHR object, I think they call it. Right? It's up here. Returns a JQXHR. So this is a, XHR. There's the XML HTTP request. That's the name of an object that browsers provide in their JavaScript execution environment. And you can, and the exercise that I gave you actually is to, step one is to use that object directly rather than using jQuery. So you need to know how to do that. But rather than operating on this XML HTTP request object directly, maybe it's a function, that we're going to use jQuery's wrapper around that object. That's why they prefix it with JQXHR. So when we call Ajax, we call this Ajax function, it returns an instance of this. It returns an instance of jQuery's wrapper around this XML HTTP request object. This wrapper supports some other functions. In particular, it supports this, I think they call this is something called the promise pattern or API. So it's down in here somewhere. I don't know where it is. So where do we call done? Let's see here. Where is that? Here it is. That's error. It should be done in here somewhere. Where is that documented? I'm going to just go up to here. As of jQuery 1.5, the Ajax method returns the XHR object, which is a superset, and I call it a wrapper, which is a superset of the XML HTTP request object. For more information, see this. There it is. And, oh, here it is. This is the done method. So we can call, we call the done method. It means we register an event handler that will run when the Ajax transaction completes. Here is where we register a callback function that gets invoked when there's a problem with the request. When the web server returns an error code, for instance, like an internal server error, it's a code of 500. If that gets returned as fail, the callback that's registered through fail will be invoked. So let's do that, and we'll trigger that as well. So I'm done, and this I failed. So we're gonna see how that works. We got 20 minutes left. Now we need to tell it where to go. This is an object, and URL is one of the properties, and we want to go to what's called GetMessage. Remember? And the type of request that it is, it's a post request. And the type of data that's returned is text. I want to check that. Is that right? I'm going to look up here at this configuration. So we have type is defined. It's alphabetical, so I just have to find it right there. No. Type would be post, right? This is type post. That's good, and it accepts lowercase letters, so I'm going to use that. The default is get, so I needed to specify post specifically. Maybe I should use the uppercase as they use in the documentation, although it works with lowercase. And then we have the data type. I'm going to go up to the D's here. Data type. The default is intelligent guess, and it will guess correctly. These are the other types. Oh, it doesn't guess text. It's not in the list. But here it is. Text is a plain text string. And that's what the servlet is returning. See, this is the content type is text/plain. We're not returning JSON. We're not returning XML. We're not returning HTTP. We are returning plain text. That's the reason we need to specify the data type there. Although I think if we omitted that, the default mechanism would work okay. But this is required because the default is get. All right, now this should succeed. I mean, if I did things right. I didn't purposefully code in a failure there, which we'll do in a moment. So when the initialization code runs, we're going to send this Ajax request. And when we get a response, we're going to say, I'm done. Otherwise, we're going to say, I failed. All right? Let's take a look. Well, I got to log in first. I'm done. There it is. It works. But now hold on there 1 minute. Where's the message? Well, the message comes in when our done callback is invoked. An argument, the data, the return data is passed in as a first argument to the callback function, so we can access it like that. done, once again, it's just text, so let's go ahead and, so this should say what? Should say, I'm a message. Didn't do anything. Oh, it says done. Thanks. I'm the message. Let's get that up.
It's Italian.
Yeah, right. It's Italian. Yeah, I'm the message. That's right. Yeah. So you've been to Italy. Okay. And let's fix it. I'm the message. But what we want to do, this is good here, of course, this is fine. It's in here, we don't want to use this alert. What we want to do actually is put it in the document. So we're going to go $, pound, message, .html. So I'm using jQuery here. This expression here, I'm using jQuery's search function or selector function to select the objects, the elements in the web page that match this CSS selector. Well, it's an easy. The selector. This is give me the element with ID equaling message. So there it is, right there. So this expression is in jQuery gives us the jQuery wrapper around this element. And so that wrapper has an HTML function. And basically it says, make this the contents of that element. So we're setting the contents of this element to that string that gets returned to us. Let's see, so that should, no, we're not going to get that pop-up window anymore. It's going to, the message will drop right into the HTML this time. There it is, I'm the message. Got it? Now, let's test the fail callback. How are we going to do that? Let's suppose we put in an X right there, right? It doesn't exist. The server's going to send back an error. It's going to say, you know, what is it, 304 or something like that. File not found, resource not found, whatever it is. So let's try it now. Now we've got a bad URL in the Ajax request. So it should say I'm failed. I failed here. Let's take a test now. I failed. See how that works? Now we could also drop that you know, into the document. We could say something like you know, we could do like this. What's that? We can give this have another div and make this an error. And in fact, give it a color. Make it red. And now we'll just do it like this. Not like that. We're almost done. And we're going to pass in, what are we going to pass in there? This is going to say, this is going to be error. And the HTML is going to be something like, you know, an error. An error has occurred. But you know what? If we want to, we can report the error that's returned to us, and that error is passed in here. The first argument is the jQuery XHR object itself, and the second argument is the error text. You can tell I've been working with this recently. Let's just the error text is set to something only in certain cases. So actually we would need to test this. But let me drop this down here. This error text may not be defined. When is error text defined? Where is that business that we were looking at? Oh, here it is. Fail. Oh, they call it error thrown. Oh, text status. They call it text status. I mean, we can call it anything we want, but I like to sync up with the documentation. They call it text status, and this is the error thrown. Return to this for implementation details. You know what? I'm not going to have time to do this now, so I'm going to just make it simple. This is, I'm just going to say error right now. Bad request. An error occurred. There we go. Let's try that. An error occurred. Let's get rid of the error. Let's fix the bug. There it is. On the message. Now, one thing I wanted to mention here, and we have 5 minutes, and that is that let's suppose we're not logged in. Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's log out. And let me see, how can I get to that log out? There we go. I'm going to log out here. So if I try to go to the GSP file, I can't get there, right? Because I'm not logged in. But maybe that message is something private. Oh, get is not supported. But you know what? Look at this. A hacker can get the message. Let's see how. Create a form. And the action is, how are we going to access that message? We need to send a post request, right? So when I type in the URL directly here into the browser, I generate a GET request, but we're only processing post requests. Let's send in a GET request. This is GetMessage. And the how do you specify the is it type equals post? I don't remember that now. Oh, it's method equals post. Sorry, method equals post. So we're going to say use the post method and send in a request for GetMessage. And we don't have to. We'll just have a submit button here. So there it is. That's the submit button. There we go. Stick that right in there. Now, when we get the response, what are we going to do? We just display it, I guess. Let's try that. See that? It's not protected. So what we would need to do is add another filter. And the cheap way to do that, let's see, and the way I recommend to do that for the future exercise, the way I've done it anyway, is I created a whole new filter. And I called it the, I'm going to call it the Ajax filter. Maybe I'll call it the user Ajax filter. And if the user is logged in, we let the request get processed. If the user is not logged in, we're not going to do a redirect because that's meaningless for the Ajax. We need to send a response to let the JavaScript know that there's an error. And so let's take a look at how to do that. We can do it like this. Or we could just say unauthorized. How do we do it like that? Let's do, oh no, we could do it like this. This is, we could tell that we could send an unauthorized response, or else we could do something else. We could just say unauthorized. We could do it inside here as a message. And let's try that. So we're not logged in, then we return this. All right, we don't need this, apparently. Is that right? Why are these not used? This should be HTTP response. But maybe those aren't even needed, actually. Let me try that. Here's the web XML. Now we have another filter to configure. This is the user Ajax filter. Let's get it configured down here. Right at the end here, user Ajax filter, and this the URL pattern is /getMessage. There we go. All right, let's try that. errors. Let's try to get the message this way again. See, unauthorized. We can't get it now. So we would have to go through here, and we will log in, get the message, and now on the home page, we can get the message as well. All right, that's it.